We've walked through sunshine, we stood in rain. We've danced in joy and we've wept through pain. Through every valley, through every climb, a love eternal stands the test of time. Faith and forever love, built on grace sent from above. There's storms that shake through skies that clear. His hand has held us year by year.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Let me move over a little closer. I wasn't in focus. Now that I'm in focus, you can see all of this ebony glow here. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
It's all that hot.
All that hot air outside making my face glow.
Yeah.
Hey, once again, we're going to welcome you back to Marriage Encounters, and whether you're joining us live or listening later on in the podcast, whether this is your first time ever seeing us or you are a familiar friend, we just want to welcome you back to ME again. My name is Bill. See, I made that rhyme. Right?
I see.
Yeah.
And I'm Michelle. Every marriage has a story, and every story has a moment when two people who love each other simply do not agree.
You got that right. You got that right. I don't care how much you love one another. Every now and then, something gonna rub you the wrong way. Not like Johnny Gill said, the right way, the wrong way. And so that's what we're talking about today, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. This is Marriage Encounters, where we help couples build marriages rooted in faith, fun, and forever.
You know what it is. Forever.
All right, so let's start with the question. After all these years of marriage, do you think we've gotten better at disagreeing?
Yeah, I think we've gotten better at disagreeing. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. But I do think over the span of time, over the decades,
why you make it sound like we so old?
It's a wonderful thing. It's better than the alternative. There's only one alternative. You get divorced or you die, right?
Yeah.
So over the decades, we have learned each other's rhythms to the point where we know when we can push in and when we need to step back. So have we gotten better? Certainly. Are we perfect at it? I don't think nobody's perfect at arguing.
Yeah.
Maybe an attorney, but even they lose. Even they take some L's sometimes.
Yeah, that's
right.
True. So I think that, that's important because sometimes people feel like, these people never argue, or these people never disagree, or people never have conflict because, you see people out in public. You don't know what's happening at their house. You don't know what's happening in their private life. Sometimes being married a long time just means you've had more opportunities to learn how to disagree without destroying each other. And you just have learned how to, for lack of a better term, put on the church face.
Right. Yeah, the church face, though, I mean, it can be wonderful and it can be incredibly detrimental.
I agree.
Opinion. Because what happens is sometimes, let's say you're having conflict with your spouse or whatever, and then you go out in public and you're just chinning and grinning, and in your mind you're saying, I don't know why this person laughing like they're having such a ball. We was just arguing 15 minutes ago. I don't want to hold your hand. No, don't be coming up here hugging on me. No, because you ain't going to hug me when we leave this place.
That's right.
Right? So don't be hugging me in public if you ain't going to hug me at home. I think that's what goes on in people's mind.
Is that the
whole
goes
on my
mind
that you have? It goes on my mind sometimes, but I ain't the only one. So, but over time, I think you learn that not every disagreement deserves the same amount of energy.
I agree.
And so there's, maybe you could call it you pick and choose your battles, but there are some things we used to argue about that now I think, why did we waste all that time arguing about it in the first place? Because it wasn't worth the effort.
Yeah. So because maturity, if what you're saying, as we mature and as we grow in marriage, it sometimes teaches us that we don't have to, everything doesn't have to become an incident. We don't have to, major in the minors. Mm-hmm. There's just some things that you really can just say, you know what, hey, this is small beans. You can have this. if we go a little bit deeper and we really start to think about it, conflict isn't necessarily a sign of an unhealthy marriage. It's just a sign of two people that have different opinions. And when we bring those two opinions together, sometimes they are going to rub. Our histories, our historical data, our personalities, our expectations, our communication styles, our families, our experiences, all of those things are rolled together, and we see the world differently, even though we are, quote unquote, we are one. If you go back to that song, that people used to sing at weddings, we are one, but we see the world from very different perspectives. And
Right.
so sometimes that creates the tension that also creates disagreement.
Right, because you can't change, you can't go back and change the time and the foundation that brought you thus far.
True.
Right, so you still have that historical uh, relevance kind of in your
That
mind.
data in your
That database is still there. You can't just dump it. And the reality is, oftentimes, it literally directs your path subconsciously, low key, even though you don't recognize that's what it is. I can say something and hear my dad talking directly in my head,
Right.
and he passed away in 2008.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think in marriages, the problem is not that a storm won't come, and maybe we shouldn't call it a storm. Maybe we should call it just a slight blowing of the wind. Okay, in a marriage, a slight blowing of the wind can happen, but recognize that that's not a time to turn against one another.
Yeah.
Because we always have to remember, and I do think that we do an excellent job of this. At the end of the day, we on the same team.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm not going nowhere. She ain't going nowhere. So
what we gonna do?
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure this out.
Because we can't be walking around not talking.
Right. So I think we do an excellent job at that now.
Mm-hmm. So when you think about it, when couples argue or have disagreements, maybe they don't necessarily argue, but they are, having conflict about money, when the deeper issue is really, I don't feel secure about something. So we may be arguing about something, but that's not really the underlying real issue. When we talk about household responsibilities and when the deeper issue is really feeling unappreciated, you can argue about how much time someone spends at work when you are really just lonely. And so we can be in a relationship and still not be getting the things that we need in that relationship. And so sometimes we're having conflictual conversations, but it's really not about what we're arguing about. I'm mad because, the dishes are still in the sink, but it really isn't about the dishes. It really is about the things that have been going on or the things that have not been going on. And so we can feel like we want to, I need to have something particular and something tangible to point at, to levy my anger at. But it really isn't that. It really is a deeper issue. And so sometimes we really have to take the time to sit down and really figure out what that real deeper issue is.
And sometimes it can be a multiplicity of issues that have been layered on top of one another. You stacked it to the point where now it's to the ceiling.
Yeah.
And it's going to topple over. And when it topples over, that's the argument that ensues. And so think about it. You're arguing about this real surfacey thing because you got 8 feet worth of layers of stuff. And the real issue is clear in the middle or clear at the bottom. And you almost got to unpack all of this other stuff that you built on top before you can get to the real issue. And sometimes you never even get to the real issue because you end up settling about halfway through.
Yeah.
And
when you were saying that, it made me think about that whole old nursery kid story where they had like the mattresses and they had the pee and the pee was in the mattresses, but they had to get down to all the mattresses and to find that little tiny pee.
Right.
And sometimes it's just that little tiny thing that has everything thrown off.
Yeah, because depending on how it affects you, it can really challenge. Have you ever get a splinter between your skin and your fingernail? See if it don't change your perspective.
Yeah. and
until
how you have to
yeah,
operate.
yeah, until you get it out. So sometimes it's those little things that are left unchecked, and if you don't get it out, you can end up getting an infection, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you got to stop arguing about what happened and ask yourself these questions, ladies and gentlemen. What are we really mad about? What are we arguing about? What's the core issue? Because it can't be this little superficial, surfacey stuff. It has to be something deeper than that. And sometimes it can be your own trauma
Yeah.
that you haven't gotten over.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is really the thing that's leading the storm.
Yeah.
So you got to really ask yourself, what is this really about? And when you figure that piece of that out, then you need to start from there and see if you can unpack the reasoning behind how you got here in the first place, why you having this argument in the first place.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that's a good question. What is this really about? Because, we often, whether it's in our marriage, in our job, other places, have these surface sorts of things that we deal with, and we don't really get to the core. We don't take the time to get to the core. Why do I really feel like this? Like, why am I really tripping about this? Is this really trip worthy? Or or am I just, out here feeling some kind of way because, something else happened? Something pushed my buttons. There was a trauma that happened. You pushed my button, and therefore it took me back to being that 17-year-old girl or that 13-year-old girl. And so now I'm arguing with you about something that really has nothing to do with you.
right, right, right. And until I figure that out, I mean, I have to learn how to break that cycle.
Yeah.
And all of us, every person carries some form of can we call it childhood trauma?
Absolutely.
Into their adult life. And oftentimes you don't realize that that's what's really affecting your behavior right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole lot of grown folk act like kids.
Right. I mean, and you're sitting here and you're literally having a temper tantrum.
Right.
And you're trying to figure out, well, the other person is trying to figure out what the heck just happened.
Right.
Like,
because I mean,
where did this come from?
Not literally, but low key. It's like you laying on the floor kicking and screaming.
Yes.
Right. So you really don't know. But when conflict gets heated, ladies and gentlemen, it's easy to make your spouse the enemy. Why? Because they are the person that you should be spending the most time with. Notice I didn't say quality time. It should be quality time, but just by proximity, you're going to be around them the most. And if I'm around you the most, then you can become an easy target and or a victim of whatever I'm experiencing or whatever I'm going through at that moment, right? And so what happens then, if you begin to make your spouse the target, you spend your leisurely time gathering evidence. I mean, it's like you on the beach, bro, with a bucket, picking up seashells. You just gathering tidbits of evidence so that the next time you step into the heat of battle, you got all of these things that you can come with. You got all these comebacks. And that's a dangerous place to be because you'll start bringing up something that happened in 2016, or 2025 or 2024, whatever it was. You'll start bringing up stuff that should have been water that has been released under the bridge, not just under the bridge, but flowing on downstream. But you bring it back up because you're trying to keep enough ammunition. So at the point of attack, you got something to shoot back with. That's a dangerous place to be.
It is, because at that point we've opened up the archive of these are all the things. These are all the. I think you said it earlier about going into trial. Well, every trial, the attorneys are looking and they're trying to find all the pieces of evidence. They're trying to get all the pieces so that they make sure that when they get in here, no matter what is being said, they've got a rebuttal for it.
Right, and I like that because not only do they have a rebuttal, but oftentimes they'll try and twist it so it goes right back in the direction that they want it to go. They're kind of working the narrative so it goes back into the direction. So you got to be real careful with this because this is something that creates friction in a whole lot of marriages. All right. uh, because just like you say, you've got dates, you've got times, and you probably got some witnesses all lined up, ready to take the stand
Ready to
in your
testify.
behalf, testify on your behalf, even if all that's just in your mind.
Yeah, you got exhibit A through Z, and you got them all bagged up and ready to boom,
Right.
boom.
Right.
You pulling them out. But that's what when that happens, we stop trying to understand because we are so in the mode of defending ourselves that we do not take the time to understand what is happening. If I win, you leave the conversation feeling defeated. Did our marriage really win?
Right. I like that.
If
Did our marriage win?
if I am out to win, did our marriage win?
Right. I'm out to win instead of understand.
Yeah, because it's easy to get into that place of just wanting to defend yourself, putting yourself in a place where you're backed against the wall and you feel like you have to fight your way out. And if we're not careful, we both lose.
I think in marriage, is there a such thing as we declare this a draw or a tie? You know, sometimes in football, very rarely in football, but we did learn in soccer.
Yes.
What the heck?
That was so. How do you get
Y'all just done?
How do y'all just get
And
to?
you both got 4?
Right. We couldn't figure that out
How
at
did
all.
they win when y'all both got the same amount of points?
Yeah, it was so
But
confusing.
in marriage, I don't know.
FIFA was definitely a
learning
eye-opening
experience.
learning
Yeah,
experience.
But in marriage, I don't know if you can ever call anything a draw or a tie because somebody's always going to leave with their feelings being challenged unless it gets resolved. So, so sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, walking away is a way to regulate yourself. Uh, Walking away is different from just shutting someone down or shutting out, right? Because sometimes you're too angry to have a productive conversation.
Yeah, because screaming isn't really going to
that's not going to help.
Either.
So at that point in time, perhaps it's better to walk away. But like we always say, you need to schedule a time to come back.
Yeah.
Right? Because your heart's racing, your tone has changed, you're no longer listening. And that's when wisdom should tell you, I love you enough, and this matters enough to me, but I need some time to settle down before we can talk about this again. Yeah. Love says, I need to settle down because I might say something
that I can't take back.
Well, and it'll take you 20 years to get over it.
Yeah.
If you ever do, right?
Yeah. And if you call that time out, hey, I need to have a time out. Again, remember that we've always said, take those timeouts, but know when exactly you're going to come back together. Hey, we need 20 minutes. Hey, I need 30 minutes. I need an hour. Hey, can we come back to this afternoon? But don't disappear for, 2 or 3 days. That's not how a timeout works. Remember, in that timeout, you are not in there creating your arsenal. You are not in there trying to decide how you're going. You are just calm. This is all about you, calming you down, getting yourself. Maybe this is some time when you really read some scripture, pray a little bit, get yourself together, ask Holy Spirit, is this me? Because maybe this whole blow up is for you to realize, girl, you tripping. Bro, you're doing too much. Sometimes it's just figuring out that we messed up.
Right.
Not pointing the finger.
Right.
But looking at myself.
And then taking responsibility for that. Mm-hmm. Because oftentimes it can be you. As a matter of fact, a whole lot of times it's probably us. And I try and really use that now that I'm older and so much more wiser. I have to ask myself before I bring anything to my wife, is this me or is this actually something? You know what I'm saying? Because, you can conjure up a whole lot of junk, right?
Well, and you can get something in your mind and then you start playing it and
play
making it. Yeah, and you done made this whole thing happen. They just didn't cook your steak to well, and you've made this whole, they're trying to kill me, da 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 da. I mean, and you've blown this whole thing out of proportion, and you the other person's like, where did you even get that from?
Right, because I've been cooking it. It's been simmering in the crock pot the last 2 hours. So a healthy timeout is definitely something that we need to do and then return back. Perhaps you say, we're going to take this 30 minutes. Let's come back and finish this. And that's very different from punishment through silence, because, please understand that when you give in the silent treatment, oh, you still talking.
That's
Okay?
true.
The problem
It's just
is
a different kind of communication.
yeah, it's just a different kind of communication. And you, in the silent treatment, you talking in your head, I'm talking in my head, but in my head, I'm having a conversation with you, and in your head, you having a conversation with me, and what your rebuttal's going to be. So in the silent time, you still having a conversation. So you got to be careful about that. Not when you go away to cool down, but if you give somebody silent treatment. Okay. Uh, Here's one thing I've definitely learned as a husband. Sometimes your spouse wants you to hear them before they want you to fix anything.
That make your head hurt.
I'm gonna have a word of prayer. This is my 5-minute time out, and I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna talk to the Lord, and then I'm coming back. All right. And that's hard for a lot of us fellas, especially if we have a fix-it mentality.
Because y'all don't want to listen long enough to hear what we got to say.
No,
You just want to jump in and
let's
fix it.
Let's
like,
get the solution, so we
I
can
already know the answer. I just need to be able to get it out of my head.
So sometimes the solution starts when your spouse understands that I hear you. All right, or I understand, and I can see why you feel that way. That doesn't mean that I'm going to agree with everything. It means that I care enough to listen. But listen, if you're going to allow your spouse, from the female perspective, to talk about the issue, okay? Can you please put it on a timer?
No.
Because we don't need the next 45 minutes.
Hey, here's the thing.
Discussing the details.
If you really understand how women work, we have to tell you all the details, because all the details matter.
That's true.
Like, all the details matter, because you cannot get the right answer without all the details.
But do I really need to hear
yes.
that the red dress,
yes,
I was mad because my red dress, I spilled something on it, and now I had to change it?
Yes. Because then you know why I wasn't in the place that I needed to be in. And if I had decided that the red dress was what I was going to wear, and then I have to change, it changes my whole mood. It changes all of that. You have to hear all of that.
So we're going to have another word of prayer for the brothers. Anyway, but that can be a place of friction. It really can. So you have to be...
But you knew who you married, so
well, yeah.
you knew that they talked a lot when you got married to them.
So maybe and maybe not. And the reason why I say that, because if you were not cohabitating before you got married, then you only heard the conversations that
you wanted to have,
that she or he wanted to have. So you didn't
true.
know that they were jabberjaws until you're like, what the world? Afterwards, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that anybody in this room is a jabberjaw.
No,
my wife is not. We enjoy when you have kids that don't live at home anymore. When you got grown adult children. Can you have grown adult children?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
There will be our
children,
but there will be our children for the rest of their lives.
Okay, good point. Good point. Your house gets quiet. For all y'all that are in
the throes of having
of chatter all the time, hang in there. There will come a day when the house is quiet. And you flip to the other side. You get so accustomed to quiet that when you go in a noisy environment, you're like, good Lord, could some of y'all shut up? Why are you talking? Jesus. Anyway, back to the subject again.
His grandpa just came out.
Yeah. No, that wasn't my grandpa. That's John Gilbert. Man, that was my dad. Why is all this noise going on? All right.
So both husbands and wives, be careful about using your spouse's vulnerabilities against them during conflicts. Sometimes we get into these situations and we start to have these conflicts, and then we realize that, if a spouse is having that conversation, about what's going on, how they're doing, and they're telling you all the details. Sometimes that's that vulnerability, or them being able to say, hey, this hurts my feelings, or hey, this struggle happened, or hey, I made this mistake, or this is a fear, this is that I have. We have to be careful not to stomp on those vulnerabilities, because again, I think you talk about this a lot, that once a man opens up, if he realizes that this is not a safe space to talk about this, he's never going to talk about it again, and getting him to open again will be absolutely difficult. But then it pushes him to want to go, because you still have to talk about it. So now I'm talking to my boys, and I'm doing it at the barbershop, or I'm doing it at the bar, or I'm doing it at,
worse yet, I'm talking to
another lady,
or the wife is talking to another man about that. Dangerous.
Yeah. So when we bring up those vulnerabilities, when we use those against them, when we use those as weapons against our spouse, then that's not fighting fair. Okay. So when we have a disagreement, we have to really, and we talk about this a lot, about setting those ground rules for what does it really look like to have a disagreement. How have we set those ground rules so that we know what we can talk about, what we can't talk about, what is off the table, so that our spouse feels emotionally safe to have the conversation and to get out and to really have the conflict, because we're going to have some, but to have it in a way that we both walk away feeling okay about it.
That can be challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part of when your marriage has to be designed and built to last. Our scripture comes from James 1:19, and it says, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. And I think that scripture is pretty straightforward. But in case it's not, shut up. I think that's as straightforward as they can come.
Oh my God.
I think that's straightforward as it comes. I gave you the King James version. Then I gave you the Bill Van version. All right. So between those two versions, you ought to come up with the conclusion that we need to sometimes be quiet, be ready to listen, and not allow our anger to boil over.
Yeah. And I think, if we're real honest, most of us are quick to speak, quick to get angry, quick to make judgment, and eventually we might listen, but we've already made this scenario in our mind. We've already decided, but scripture gives us that different rhythm, that we've got to be quick to listen and not be so anxious and want to have a rebuttal, and not be so anxious to want to jump in. What would help us solve this issue is really what we need to be getting to. What will help us to come to a good conclusion? Ask, what do you need? What am I missing? What did I not hear? What did you not get? What are you not receiving that I can give you? Because sometimes the real things, the real issues, your spouse can't really solve them for you.
That's quite possible.
Yeah, I mean, we've had issues, and we've had conversations, and you said, well, what can I do for you? Well, in this particular situation, there's nothing you can do for me, because it may or may not. Maybe the situation doesn't have anything to do with you. We're in conflict because I'm really having a conflict with someone else. And can you really solve that problem? No. I need you to listen to me. I need you to role play with me. I need you to scenario this out so that I can figure out, how do I deal with this issue? Does that make sense? And so sometimes there's, the conflict isn't really with your spouse, and there's, but your spouse is there, and you're having a rub with them because it's a problem that's outside of your marriage.
I do like the fact that you said that little word "us" can change a conversation. Not you, not me, but us. It reminds us that the problem is the problem, and your spouse isn't the problem. So let's fixate and focus on solving. Well, here we go. Solving our listening and understanding the problem.
Yeah, because I think there's a difference between hearing and listening.
Mhm.
I can hear you, but am I truly, truly listening to what you're saying?
Mhm.
Because, to listen, I've got to do it with my face.
Right.
To hear you, I can be, multitasking and doing 50,000 other things. So here's our love work. Choose one small disagreement you've been having. Now, I don't need you to go to the biggest, hardest, most conflictual thing that's going on, because what we're not trying to do is create another argument. But what we are asking you to do is really start to think about some of those little catty things that you've been having issues with, and really sit down and say, what is this disagreement really about?
Mhm.
And what would help us to solve this as a team?
Right. Right.
So we had, and I wouldn't call it, I mean, I don't know that we disagreed about it at all, but we had an issue that arose last night. As we were talking through it, my husband's perspective of it was, oh my God, this is horrible. It's just bad, blah, 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 blah. He's flipped out. And then, but my perspective was very different. Like, there's nothing you can do about it right now.
Mhm.
It's Sunday night at some crazy time of night. There's literally nothing you can do about this. Don't let this tank the whole rest of your night because something
Worry,
happened. Yes,
anxiety,
all of that, because
anger.
there literally is nothing you can do about it tonight. Don't make us get into an argument or have conflict, or be in a grumpy mood for the rest of the night over something that we literally cannot solve tonight. It cannot be solved until tomorrow, but we cannot allow this to destroy our evening. And so sometimes we have to get into those places. We have to understand what's going on, what's happening, and then just have the conversation of like, look, hey, do you see what's happening? Do you see where we're going? Do you see how we're about to go down this slippery slope that could be a problem? And when I brought that to his attention, he was like, you're right. I need to just pull it together. And then the rest of the afternoon, the rest of the evening was fine. But it could have went really bad, really fast.
Well, and you got to learn and know when to back away. Uh, but when you're having these opportunities,
Very good.
each person should get uninterrupted time to answer, and your job is really not to defend yourself. Uh, this is having a conversation. One question, one goal, and understanding before an agreement, right? So having an understanding before you come into agreement helps this thing not to pop back up,
Right.
okay, later on in your marriage, later on in the day, whatever it is. But if you have an understanding, and then you agree to that, then both of you should now be obligated to honor that agreement.
Yeah. And, if we're real honest, you don't have to agree about everything to have a strong marriage.
Mhm.
But you do have to honor that by coming together.
Right, right. Because if you don't learn how to disagree without destroying the safety of your relationship, you're going to have some problems.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to, as my wife said, you're not going to agree all the time. So you got to learn how to disagree, but still be in the safe zone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because marriage is built to last. Last through the storms, last through the rain, last through the conflict. But even in those storms, know that you are a team. And there is nothing that you can't do together. There's no argument, there's no conflict, there's no disagreement that you cannot solve together.
Right. So we're going to give you this marriage blessing before we leave today. And so we want to speak a blessing over our marriage and your marriage. May God give you wisdom when conversations become difficult.
May He give you patience when you don't understand each other.
May He help you listen beyond words and hear each other's heart.
May your home be a place where truth can be spoken without fear.
May anger never become cruelty. May disagreements never erase respect.
May forgiveness come quicker than pride.
And when storms come, may you remember that the person beside you is not your enemy, they're your partner. So, hey, ladies and gentlemen, may God strengthen your friendship, protect your covenant, and teach you how to keep choosing each other day in, day out, month in, month out, year in, year out, decade in, decade out, so that you can live a marriage full of what?
Faith, fun, and forever love.
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, practice
See
making
y'all.
babies.
Don't make babies.
Thank you for watching, and make sure that you join us on YouTube and our webpage, Marriage Encounters with Bill and Michelle at Weebly.com.